Hello there fellow humans and welcome to the worst intro on this channel of all time, and that is quite fitting because this is the worst to rate tanks in WoT Blitz, and it will include tanks such as this one. Hold on, that's for OnlyFans. This one. Sorry about that, I guess. Anyway, now at number 5 we have the ISU-130. Now the ISU-152 has a chassis that is, well, horrible. It has bad mobility and basically no armor besides the gun mantlet. Now what happens when you strip away the only thing that is good about that vehicle and you plonk on a gun of a tier 6? This happens. Well, to be fair, it does have still relatively high DPM, but it's not better. It's the same DPM roughly than the ISU-152, and you have two types of ammunition. One that does 460 alpha damage, and then the premium round that isn't really premium does, I believe, 530 with 215 millimeters of penetration. Remind you, the standard ammo of this thing is 250 millimeters of penetration. The standard ammo of the ISU-152 is 286 with 640 alpha damage. This thing has 460 and very similar DPM between them. So why would you pay to get everything that's bad about the ISU-152, but not the thing that is good about it? Now, yes, you can fire the second shell to get higher DPM, but again, what's the point of this vehicle? It's just an ISU-152 that is worse at what it does. And it's also a premium tank, which, what would you pay for it? That does not really make much sense. What also doesn't make sense is the 4 degrees of gun depression on this vehicle, or I believe it is 3.5 degrees. So, what happens when you have a good gun, but you can't shoot anyone because it doesn't go anywhere? That's what this vehicle is, the SU-101. Also, you have the turret, well, with the gun mounted at the back, which means if you try to peek a corner, which obviously I don't recommend, you gotta send that home first. Also, you get set on fire easier because, again, the engine is the front, which is good for the crew because more crew protection, but it's not very good for your fire, as you can see right there. So basically, this thing just trying to stop you from doing anything with the gun, right? You don't have any traverse arc, you don't have any gun depression. Obviously that is because the turret, well, the superstructure is at the back, so you can't like depress the gun through the hull. That doesn't really work. So basically this vehicle is trying to stop you from playing well, and that is what really makes a tank bad. A tank that is really bad is stopping you from extracting performance out of the vehicle. Now, the thing is, the player matters way more than the tank in a game, right? Because if you have a great player, they can play a bad tank really well. If you have a great tank and you put a bad player into it, it's going to end badly. The player has a very, very big impact on the tank. It's not just the tank stats that matter here. It's also the playability, how easy it is to transfer those stats into performance in battle. And that's what the problem with this thing is. You may have a reasonably solid gun, but how well can you transfer that into gameplay that it does actually well? A good player, you're going to be able to extract performance out of this, but anyone else will not be able to, and that is what truly makes a tank horrible. It is simply, it works against you. It does not want you to play it well. That's what the SU-101 does. It doesn't like you. It doesn't want you to succeed. It wants you to attempt to shoot something, but then miraculously not be able to because of the gun depression that is absolutely horrible. Oh yes, you'll have good games. So there's going to be some people that like this tank, and if you do, put it in the comments. Tell me why. I'd really like to know. And if you disagree with the list, again, you know, put it in the comments. I'd like to hear your opinions on this as well. However, be reminded that I like this tank is not a valid opinion to dismiss a tank not being bad. Liking a tank doesn't change what it is. You just like what it is. So, keep that in mind. Now, this vehicle is bad. But number 3 is also a premium tank. And you're going to pay for bad, which is not great. You don't want to really pay for something that is worse than what you can get for free, like a Pershing or even the regular Panther. You can like, just play those and you want that. Now, you can also mention something like an STA-1 or a T-44-100 in this position. And a T-44-100 having worse penetration as well, by a lot. However, Panther 88 is here because it's sold a lot, which is a bad thing. And it's also very big and doesn't have any armor, which means it's an easy target and it's easy to kill it. Which again makes it hard for you to get anything out of it. Because wherever you go, people are going to try to shoot at you, they're going to succeed, and they're going to pen you. And that is not really what I would ever consider good, is it? Now this vehicle, of course, again, it's a premium tank. Premium tanks are supposed to be fun, supposed to give you a lot of credits. The problem with a lot of the tier 8 medium tanks is that they have very, very poor standard penetration. Like a Progetto, for example. It has extremely poor standard penetration. However, that thing does make up for that downside with other factors. Like the mobility, like the auto-reload. This thing doesn't quite have that horrible standard penetration, but the problem is, it's not good at anything. There is nothing this thing is actually good at. So basically, what you buy is nothing. And I don't think buying nothing is a good idea. I mean, you can just buy NFTs and then you also bought nothing. But that's... well, technically a tank is kind of an NFT because it doesn't have any value and you can only, like, you can play with it, but you'll never get any value back, but that's another story anyway. Panther 88, don't buy it, it's bad. Number 2. Why would you want to play a tank that is slower, has worse armor, has a worse gun, and has worse means of acquiring the next vehicle? Because you need more XP from the Ferdinand to the Jagdtiger than you do from the Panther 2 to the Jagdtiger. Not great, is it? So, you also have a flat superstructure. The Jagdtiger 2 is angled, which means everyone can pen this thing's superstructure very easily. It's also very slow because, I mean, it's obviously, it's basically a Tiger P with a superstructure plonked onto it and an engine that was already stressed out and that caught fire at the demonstration, and you put that under even more load. And again, this is not a vehicle where the engine is at the front. Again, fire risk is increased, which is not good. Again, if you try to peek around a corner, what are you going to do about it? Obviously, something like that is not a problem for a vehicle like a Batchat, having the turret mounted at the rear. But for a lot of tanks, that makes them really bad. Especially for an average or below average player, which also has to be mentioned because a bad tank is different for a Super Unicum than it is for an average player. Because for a Super Unicum, you're like, okay, this is a challenge. For a bad player or a new player, it is absolutely destructive. So you would not want to have this vehicle under any circumstances. Luckily, you don't have to, because you can just go with the Panther 2, you'll have a better tank, it's going to perform better, and you'll be just about fine. And you also reach the Jagdtiger faster if you wish to actually do that, which is nice. And it is a mouse gun, basically, that you have that is equipped with more DPM, which is cool. However, again, a gun that is good and a chassis that does everything to make the gun not work. You already had that two times on this list, and this is number 3, is really bad. Because the chassis on this tank works against you every step of the way. You got horrible armor, you got miserable mobility, it just doesn't work. Luckily, it's not as horrible as a Stura Emil, but again, you can just easily skip this thing as well. You don't even have to get it. I mean, it's the good thing about the Ferdinand. You don't have to get it. You can just skip it. You go to the Panther 2, you'll be fine, and you can get the Jaegeru that way, which is very nice. And I'm just gonna sit here and wait for this guy to peek, and he is, and he's tasty. So, a bad tank is a tank that makes you horrible by simply stopping you from extracting the performance that it could have. For example, this is a good gun. If you put this gun in a heavy tank, that's most likely a great tank. But it's on this chassis, which makes it horrible. Now, speaking of horrible, this team and the STG, the undoubtedly, unquestionable, horrible, miserable, worst tank of tier 8. It can't pen anything, it doesn't have any gun depression, it doesn't have any armor, it doesn't have good accuracy, it has nothing. Well, it has 400 alpha damage. Which, yes, 400 alpha damage is a good thing. However, you can get a Chimera with 440 alpha damage, with penetration, with gun depression, even a bit of armor. Because in a tier 9 battle with this vehicle, you're completely screwed. Your premium penetration is 225 millimeters. That is the standard penetration of quite a sizable amount of tier 8s. But this is your premium penetration, 225, and then that 225 also does obviously less damage. It only does 340. And with the 180mm standard penetration, which is bad. But then again, Progetto also has 180mm of standard penetration. Why isn't the Progetto on this list? Well, because the Progetto somewhat does make up for it with, let's say, gun depression and autoloader. And also more mobility, which this thing isn't really that great at either. It's not amazingly fast either. It's just about average. And also, again, you have the engine at the front, which means your chance of fire is about triple, which is not great. So, you have turret armor, but you can't use it because you have no gun depression. And because your turret is at the back, which means you have to turn around every time you try to peek a corner. You see the problem? This thing is just trying as hard as it possibly can to stop you from succeeding any way possible. That is why this thing is the worst tier 8. And if that wouldn't be bad enough, you also have to pay for it. Like, why would you do that? No. Now, obviously, there are going to be some people out there that like the STG, and good for you, right? However, opinion can't see past what it actually is. And that's horrible. You know, yes, if you're a good player, again, you can get performance out of this. You can get performance out of anything. But the problem is, for an average player, or even, well, anyone, this thing is just absolutely trying to make you miserable. And that is what truly makes a tank bad. It is trying to stop you from playing well with it. A great tank makes it easy for you to play it well. Like a T42, like a 557, like a 53 TP. Those work. This is miserable. But I hope you're not miserable. And I hope you didn't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Put what you think in the comments, and see you for the next one. Goodbye.